The Obas of Benin, always clever and diplomatic, welcomed the Portuguese as trade partners, not conquerors. They exchanged Benin pepper, so famous that Europeans called it grains of paradise, ivory, carved into precious art and shipped across Europe. Slaves, tragically, in small numbers at first, often prisoners of war from other regions, guns and gunpowder, brought in exchange for local goods. Cultural insight. The Edo people didn't view trade in captives the same way we do today. Slaves were often war captives or criminals and were used for labor or sacrificed in rituals. But over time, European demand turned this into a violent and corrupt system that devastated many African societies. As trade deepened, so did the complexity. The Portuguese brought Christian missionaries who tried to convert the Edo people, writing and new technologies, maps of the world, opening Benin to global knowledge. But the Edo never lost their identity. The Obas remained faithful to their gods, ancestors, and way of life. Fun fact: Portuguese faces can be seen on many Benin bronze plaques, often shown with long noses, hats, and curly beards. The artists were not just recording history, they were documenting an African kingdom's first contact with global powers. By the 1800s, Britain had become the dominant European power in West Africa. Unlike the Portuguese, the British were not just interested in trade, they wanted total control. At the time, Oba Ovonramwen ruled Benin. He was a proud and spiritual leader who had no interest in surrendering his kingdom's independence. The British wanted free access to Benin's palm oil, ivory, and more. When the Oba restricted trade during sacred festivals, they saw it as a challenge. Then came a tragic turning point. In January 1897, a British peace mission entered Benin without permission. It was a trap. Local warriors, acting without the Oba's full knowledge, attacked the group and killed several British officials. The British used this as an excuse to launch a full-scale invasion. In February 1897, over 1,200 British troops, armed with machine guns, artillery, and torches, marched on Benin City. What followed was one of the most devastating cultural losses in African history. The palace was burned to the ground, shrines were destroyed, thousands of bronzes, ivories, and sacred items were looted. Benin nobles were killed, and women and children fled into the forests. Oba Ovonramwen was captured and exiled to Calabash, where he died in sorrow in 1914. Secret fact: some loyal palace guards hid a few sacred bronzes and altars in forest shrines. A handful of these survived and were passed down in secret for over 100 years. Led by global and local efforts, the Edo people are building a world-class museum in Benin City to house returned bronzes and educate future generations. It is more than a museum. It is a healing space, a place of reunion between the kingdom's past and its future. Cultural fact: every bronze that returns is welcomed with a ritual. Priests pour libations, chant ancestral names, and offer palm wine to the spirit within the metal. Each piece is not just an object, it is a person returning home. The story of Benin is not a tale of loss, it is a tale of resilience, resistance, and revival. The walls were breached, the palace burned, but the people remembered. Today, as the Oba walks through the rebuilt palace grounds, and as children learn the stories once nearly erased, a quiet voice rises from the bronzes. The kingdom still breathes. The ancestors still walk with us. We are Benin. Oba Ovonramwen, the 38th Oba of Benin, ruled from 1888 until the fateful British invasion in 1897. His name meant the rising sun which spreads across the earth, and for much of his reign, he lived up to it. Wise, firm, deeply spiritual, and determined to keep Benin independent. After the fall, when British troops burned Benin City, Oba Ovonramwen fled into the forests with a small band of loyal followers. For 6 months he evaded capture, using the secret footpaths and shrines only known to the inner circle of Benin's spiritual world. Eventually, he was betrayed, not by his warriors, but by those hoping for a reward. After the British invasion of Benin City in February 1897, the once glorious capital was engulfed in flames. The magnificent royal palace, which had stood for centuries, was torched. The sacred altars were desecrated. Thousands of bronze and ivory artifacts were looted, but the Oba Ovonramwen Nogbaisi, the spiritual and political heart of the kingdom, was missing. The Great Escape. As British soldiers marched through the burning gates of Benin, Oba Ovonramwen fled into the surrounding forests, guided by loyal warriors, chiefs, and priestly custodians. For months, he stayed hidden in the dense sacred groves and river thickets of southern Nigeria, places believed to be protected by ancestral spirits and deities. The forest itself became a shield. The Oba moved from shrine to shrine, staying in hidden compounds. Local villagers and devotees of the palace gods brought him food, herbs, and messages. Every morning, rituals were done to mask his spiritual presence from enemy forces. He was not just hiding physically, but cloaking himself magically. Fun cultural fact. According to oral tradition, special invisibility charms were worn by the Oba's entourage, known as Egbe, to confuse enemy trackers. Some even claimed the Oba could walk in the shadow of the leopard, invisible in daylight. But despite all this, time was running out. The British, embarrassed by the earlier ambush, where some of their officers were killed during an unauthorized expedition, were determined to punish and humiliate the Oba personally. They declared him a fugitive, offering rewards for anyone who could help track him down. They pressured local chiefs. Many of these were loyal to the palace, but some were tired, scared, or opportunistic. After 6 months in hiding, Oba Ovonramwen finally emerged from the forest in August 1897. But here's the painful twist. He didn't surrender directly to the British. Instead, he first sought refuge with a group of chiefs from his inner court, men who had once pledged eternal loyalty to the crown. One of them, most famously Chief Ago Obaseki, was a powerful palace official and a colonial interpreter. Some historians believe he collaborated with the British, hoping to secure personal power in the new colonial system. These chiefs convinced the Oba that surrender would protect his people from further destruction. They promised safe passage, negotiation, and mercy. Ovonramwen, placing his faith in them as sons of the kingdom, agreed. But the moment he stepped forward, the British placed him in chains. He was paraded through the ruins of Benin City, stripped of royal regalia, surrounded by soldiers, and watched silently by the very chiefs who had led him there. "The leopard has been captured," one British officer wrote in his diary. "The jungle has lost its king." To the Edo people, the betrayal wasn't just political, it was spiritual treason. The Oba was the living bridge between the world of the living and the ancestors. To betray him was to break the covenant with the gods, to shatter the oaths sworn under coral beads and bronze altars. The betrayal was remembered as a curse on the betrayer's descendants, and even today, some families refuse to speak the names of those who aided the British. Cultural insight. In traditional Edo belief, betraying a king brings orhi, ancestral judgment. It's believed that some of the men who betrayed the Oba later went mad or died mysteriously, and their family lines faced misfortune. Oba Ovonramwen was exiled to Calabar, where he lived under British surveillance until his death in 1914. He never returned to Benin. Chief Ago Obaseki, however, was rewarded by the British, made a warrant chief, and given control over parts of Benin under colonial rule. Yet his legacy remains controversial in Benin memory. To some, he was a practical survivor. To others, a traitor to the sacred crown. In Edo oral history, the moment of betrayal is remembered not just as a political fall, but a cosmic imbalance. The sky dimmed, the ancestors wept, and even the earth turned its face away. But despite betrayal, exile, and ruin, the royal line lived on. Ovonramwen's descendants eventually returned. The palace was rebuilt, and today, when the Oba walks through Benin City, he carries both the crown and the wound of a kingdom that never surrendered its soul. The British took the Oba to Calabash, a coastal town in southern Nigeria, and placed him under house arrest. He was allowed no crown, no throne, and no formal court. Yet, even in exile, he refused to bow or kneel before British officers. When commanded to do so, he replied, "A leopard does not kneel before a goat." He died quietly in 1914, just months before the outbreak of World War I. His spirit, however, is still remembered as a symbol of royal resistance, a king who lost his kingdom, but not his honor. The Edo people believed that the physical and spiritual worlds are deeply connected, especially when it comes to kingship. The palace wasn't just guarded by warriors, it was protected by rituals, charms, and ancestral forces. The palace employed powerful priests known as Ohen Osa and Abohon, who performed regular rituals to protect the Oba from curses and attacks, communicate with the ancestors, cleanse the palace of bad energy, strengthen the kingdom's spiritual walls. Before any war, festivals, or royal decision, these priests would consult Ohionwan, the supreme god, and Olokun, the god of wealth and the sea. Fun fact, special war charms were buried at key points around the palace to confuse enemy soldiers, cause their weapons to misfire, or trap them in illusions. Some British troops even reported strange dreams and disorientation during the invasion. We've already mentioned the walls and moats of Benin, stretching over 16,000 kilometers, the longest ancient earthworks in the world. But these weren't just defensive structures. They were built with rituals involving kola nuts, blood offerings, and songs to the earth gods. At every major gate, protective charms were buried, including bones of leopards, symbols of the Oba's divine authority. Even today, some elders believe that part of the old walls still hear the footsteps of strangers, especially near sacred groves. Though Benin was colonized and the old empire ended, the Oba's dynasty was never broken. The royal line continues today, with Oba Iwa II crowned in 2016 as the 40th Oba of Benin. Festivals of revival. The Edo people still celebrate vibrant festivals that reconnect them with their royal past, such as Igwe Festival, a powerful end-of-year celebration that purifies the Oba and the land, full of blessings, dances, and ancestral offerings. It is said to renew the Oba's spiritual power for the coming year. Ugi Erhoba, a ceremony honoring past Obas and asking for their guidance. Drummers play ancient rhythms, chiefs wear coral beads, and masked dancers, called Ekpo, represent spirits from the other world. Emoten Day, a day remembering Emoten, a brave woman who protected the young Prince Iwar, later Oba Iwar the Great. Her statue stands in Benin City today as a symbol of female strength and loyalty. Led by global and local efforts, the Edo people are building a world-class museum in Benin City to house returned bronzes and educate future generations. It is more than a museum. It is a healing space, a place of reunion between the kingdom's past and its future. Cultural fact, every bronze that returns is welcomed with a ritual. Priests pour libations, chant ancestral names, and offer palm wine to the spirit within the metal. Each piece is not just an object, it is a person returning home. The story of Benin is not a tale of loss, it is a tale of resilience, resistance, and revival. The walls were breached, the palace burned, but the people remembered. Today, as the Oba walks through the rebuilt palace grounds, and as children learn the stories once nearly erased, a quiet voice rises from the bronzes. The kingdom still breathes. The ancestors still walk with us. We are Benin. Thank you for opening the calabash with us today. We've traveled through ancient streets, stood before kings, and watched molten bronze tell stories without words. So, what amazed you most about the mighty kingdom of Benin? Was it the fearless Obas who ruled with wisdom and divine power? The bronze art that captured the soul of a people? Or the brilliant city planning that stunned even European explorers? Whatever it was, remember, this was Africa. Bold, brilliant, built to last. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Calabash Diaries, where African stories are told the right way, with pride, truth, and heart. Until next time, may your heart be strong, your mind be wise, and your story be golden. The Calabash Diaries, where our past is power.